Greetings, everyone. We are going to learn about tithis today, which is a Vedic calendar unit and also a Vedic spatial unit like a zodiac sign. So the reason why we're learning about it is because we're in Phaladipika, 12th chapter, and the next technique that he's going to present about finding a person's fertility is going to utilize this thing, TITHI and Karna. So most people don't really know what these things are. So before we dive into that technique, it's a good excuse to learn about TITHI and Karna because they're very important. The whole basis of real Vedic electional astrology is really on tithis and the yoga that they make with the nakshatra. So without further ado, let us begin. So what are tithis? They're very interesting things. You can see here. You take the circle of the zodiac, or the circle of the ecliptic, and you divide it into 30 sections. If you divide 360 degrees by 30, what do you get? 12. So each one of these tithis is 12 degrees. So it is a very interesting complement to the zodiac, because the zodiac is 12 sections of 30 degrees, where the tithis are 30 sections of 12 degrees. The significant difference between the zodiac and the tithi wheel is that the zodiac is anchored to the equator, really is anchored to the Earth's equator in terms of the sun's relationship to the equator. To say that in terms that are more easily understood, it's anchored to equinoxes and solstices. So it doesn't move with the sun. The zodiac doesn't move with the sun. Rather, the sun moves with the zodiac. Although the sun creates it. By its relationship to the equator, the sun moves through it, but not with tithis. Only the tithis move with the sun. The tithi is anchored to the sun. And it mostly applies to the moon, though there's no real reason why you couldn't apply to anything else. But in general, we've never seen it apply to anything else except the moon. Although actually in this technique that we're going to learn next week, there'll be some calculated point that will be put into a tithi. So as you can see with this, when you divide the zodiac space into 30 sections, then further divide them into two halves. One bright and one dark. And why is that? It's because the tithi is realized by seeing the shape of the moon. The further that the moon gets away from the sun, the more its shape changes. The more it gets full. So then after it gets to the halfway point, it starts to get less full the more it moves. So the tithis are 30 divisions, which are actually two sets of 15. One set of 15 is waxing, and the other set of 15 is waning. So this leads some people to equate tithis with moon phases, and that's reasonably accurate. So the Vedic system divides the moon phases into 15 steps. Why 15 steps? Why not some other number? It's because there's 15 days. There's 15 sunrises between the full moon and the next full moon, or the new moon and the next full moon, or any phase and the next same phase. So that's why when we want to divide up the space in terms of the moon's distance from the sun, we'll divide it into 30, because there's 30 days. And so we'll get these 12-degree segments. So you can see now that the sun stays put in reference to the tithis, but the moon moves. So at this point now, it would be half waxing, and now it's 3/4 waxing, and now it's coming to full. Now it's exactly full. Now it starts to wane, as it's in the 4th tithi, 5th tithi. Now it's about half empty. It's half empty when it gets to the 8th, and now it becomes very dark, and now it starts to disappear, and now you don't see it, and now it's a new moon again. So this is basically what the tithis are. Does it make sense? Any questions about that? Now, there's lore, you might say, about which tithis are auspicious and which are not. These particular ones that I've identified here they're called chidra, which means they have a flaw. So they're not thought of as auspicious nakshatras, which means that if you want to do something which is not very benefic, like not very growth oriented, let's say if you need to get rid of something, let's say if you need to pull out weeds from the field, let's say if you need to end a relationship with a foreign country, let's say if you need to kill somebody, fight some enemy, let's say if you need to go for surgery, maybe get rid of something, then these nakshatras are good. Not nakshatras, these tithis are good. The chidra nakshatras are good for things which are reductive, whereas the other nakshatras are good for the things that are more prosperous. Like if you want to plant seeds, if you want to start a relationship, if you want to have a marriage, etc., then you would time it for a moon phase which is not 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, or 14. You can see that they're exactly the same on both the waxing and the waning, right? The fourth phase of waxing and 4th phase of waning are both chidra, or flawed. 6th of waxing, 6th of waning, same. 8th of waxing, 8th of waning, same. But in general, any waxing tithi is better than any waning tithi for prosperous work, where the objective is growth, where the objective is assembling or increasing things. Then the waxing side of the month is better, of course, isn't it? Because the moon is growing. But if the objective is to decrease or get rid of something, then the waning half of the month is better. I'm saying month now because this wheel cycle of tithis defines a month, a lunar month. Okay, so that being the case, the 4th tithi of the waning cycle is more chidra than the 4th tithi of the waxing cycle. So the white number 4 would be a bit more auspicious of a date than the black 4. Make sense? Any questions? The logic as to why these particular numbers are chosen eludes me. I don't know why. It was decided that 4, 6, 8, 9, 12, and 14 are chidra. I'm sure there's a good reason for it, but I don't know what it is. But particularly confusing to me is 8 and 9, especially 8. Because a lot of these very important charts of like avatars and things are people that are born on the 8th tithi. So take this as an introduction to the science of tithis, not really a complete master presentation of it. Let's just get ourselves introduced and familiar with them. Chidra, yeah, it's like a hole or a flaw. So if you want to break something, I'm dealing with all this property right now, like land that's all messy, and we're trying to clean it up. So I've been noticing a lot of rocks, that like big old rocks. When rocks get a chidra or a randra, then they start to fall apart. But when rocks don't have chidra, then they stay for thousands and thousands of years. But as soon as they get a small crack, then within a couple of decades, they turn into a lot of small rocks. So the concept of chidra is, here is a flaw that will allow this thing to break down. So you don't want to perform building up activities or strengthening activities on chidra. You want to perform weakening activities and breaking down activities on chidra. Yes, I did get a nasty cold. Isn't it because tithis are assigned a ruling planet? There's 15 of them. How would you... What? Tell me more about that, Bardo. Where have you heard that they're assigned a ruling planet, and what is the rulerships? As far as I know, there's 7 planets. Or maybe there's 9? But the pattern doesn't repeat, so I don't see... See, there's a pattern here of 1, 2, 3 that's good, and then 4, but you don't see another space of 3, or you see another space of 4. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 space 1. I don't know. Can you explain this more? My tithi is Shukla Dashami, and Karna is Taitula. Moon is Punarvasu Nakshatra. My tithi is... Thank you, Brian. My tithi is 11th dark. Yeah, today is 12th. For me, tithi is difficult to figure out and tell people about also. This is maybe why it's not so popular on YouTube. Because I can't really go on YouTube and make a video and say, okay, today is the 11th tithi of the waxing moon or the waning moon. So, blah, blah, blah. Because it's dependent upon sunrise, which is dependent on your locality. It's the moon's distance from the sun. Remember this? So how do you figure out the tithi for a day? Where the moon is when the sun rises. Compared to the moon's distance from the sun when the sun rises is the tithi that dominates that day. So if you're in California and I'm in Japan, the sun rises a lot later for you than it does for me. And the moon can travel like a whole nother 8 degrees in that time. So it could easily, the day, on the calendar day that had me be on the 11th of the lunar month, can have you be on the 12th. That's why it's difficult to like popularize it in global media. But you can do it with apps, you know, or smartphone apps where the app itself knows the person's location. Vedic calculators show you the ruler of the tithi. Alright, you know what, Bardo? Let's look this up. Glasses on. Planetary rulers of tithi. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They say it goes in regular order. So this makes no sense. Let's see if they explain it more. Let me see. The rulership of the but they say that the sun would rule the first, going up to Rahu ruling the 8th, and then it would repeat. So let's see if this makes any sense. Because Bardo suggests that this explains the Chidra and not Chidra. So 1 would be Sun, 2 would be Moon, 3 would be Mars. So why isn't it Chidra? 4 is Mercury. Does that make any sense? 5 is Jupiter, 6 is Venus. Why would it be Chidra? Mercury and Venus, maybe we have a pattern. But 7 is Saturn. That pattern fell apart. If it was 4, 6, 7, then we could say it was that group of planets. And then 8 is Rahu, right? And then 9 is Chidra, but 9 is the Sun's. So this pattern can't be used to explain the Chidra feature. Victor Ventura says, Tithi is related to the quality of the moon. Is it more relevant for someone with rising Cancer? Tithi is related to the quality of the moon. It's the phase of the moon. It's the fullness of the moon. Is it more relevant for someone with rising Cancer? That's an interesting proposal. Maybe it is. Okay, how did you determine? Now we have to wait 20 seconds for the next one. Let's go ahead and now look at Karna. So now, what's a Karna? These are the Karnas. Can you see the small lines in between the other ones? Every 6 degrees is a Karna. So there's 60 Karnas in a cycle, right? However, the confusing part is that there's only 11 different Karnas. So obviously they repeat, right? But it's even more confusing than that, because only 7 of them repeat, 4 of them don't. But it will make sense after I show it to you. So let me just show you what the Karnas are. So remember, Karna is basically half a day. Moon's moving 6 degrees equals the half of a day. It's about 12 hours. So they just go in this order. And you start from the second half of the first Tithi. If you want to know why, you'll know why by the time you get to the end. So just hang on to that question. It will be explained. So you got Bhava, Balava, Kolava, Taitila, Garaja, Vanija, and Vishti. Bhava means it's coming into existence. That's why it's the first one. Balava means it's strong, it's youthful, it's energetic. Kolava means it's kind of matured, it's become noble. It's become full grown and reliable. Taitila. Taitila, it sounds like it means something like beautiful. Like a parrot. Like parrots are very beautiful. Also it means, but it means kind of like very beautiful, like divine. Taitila. Somebody was born in Taitila, Karna, somebody said. Tatiana, I think. Garaja. Garaja means very wise. So that's even more than beauty, is wisdom. And then Vanija, wealthy, that's even better. Lol. And then Vishti. There's a famous astrologer named Vishti Larson. Vishti means a servant. This is actually the objective is to be of service to people. So it's the 7th Karna, but it's not very prosperous, is it? It's not very auspicious or bright. To be a servant is kind of like you're lower. So of these 7 Karnas, 6 of them are considered prosperous and good for things like building, like increasing things. But the 7th one is not considered good for building up. It's considered good for pushing down, going down. So this cycle just repeats itself throughout the whole zodiac. It's not really the zodiac. Throughout the whole circle based on the moon, based on the sun. Wherever the sun is, this zero point of the Tithi wheel just follows the sun wherever it is. But remember, the moon moves faster than the sun. Much. 12 times faster. And so that's why the moon moves through the wheel faster than the sun does. So now you can see how it looks when you spread the 7 Karnas out all over the 30 Tithis. So you can probably look ahead and foresee that, well, there's a Vishti Karna on the 4th Tithi. And there's also a Vishti Karna on the 8th. Now, it may be making a little bit of sense what the pattern is. Maybe a little bit. Not really, because it skipped the 6th. But you can see there's also a Vishti on the 11th. And there's another one on the 15th. So not all the Vishti Karnas are equal in their quality because they blend with the Tithi's quality. And then you'll also notice that there's a couple that are still left blank, and there's not 7, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can't just repeat a 7 again. So there's a special 4 Karnas that are over here on this left side of the wheel. Why? Because this is where the moon is invisible. It's a new moon, and it's at such a small phase that you can't even see it. So these phases are special. They're called Chatushpad, Nagava, Kimshtunga, and Shakuna. And now it's clear why the first Tithi begins with Shakuna. Shakuna means somebody that knows the future, somebody that tells the future, something that shows the future. So the beginning of the cycle starts with the portent of the future, Shakuna. And then it goes to the first Bhava. Then it goes to the future begins to exist. And then previous to that, in the 15th dark Tithi, which is the moon is totally blank, you have these very occult, destructive Karnas. Nagava is the dragon's Karna. Kimstunga means, what can I destroy? Or what can I break down? Breaking down something, just wanting to break down something. Kimstunga is right there on the end of the cycle. And then Chatushpada, it's like a decline from humans into four-leggeds. So now you see the Tithis and the Karnas, and if you take this into consideration, that these 4 Tithis are not prosperous. And then you take into account that every 7th Tithi is also not prosperous. Then it looks like this. As to when during the lunar cycle is a prosperous time by Karna to start something, or like marriage. Or when would a child be conceived? Not in the dark sections. It's not likely because those are not... Child is growing, right? Now, if you take this and mix it with this, you put in the Chidras also. Now you have a complete picture of the auspiciousness and inauspiciousness, and it's quite interesting. It's not perfect because the reason why it's not perfect, visually perfect, is because the 15th Tithi is a lot brighter or darker than the rest of its half, right? If I wanted to make this more visually perfect, then the first Tithi of the bright, I would have to do a gradient. But then you wouldn't really be able to see clearly the border between Krishna Paksha and Shukla Paksha, the dark half and the white half. But 15, 14, 13, 12, those are very extreme in their halves. The moon is very bright in 12, 13, 14, 15, even from 11. The moon is very dark even in 11, 12, in 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 of the dark half. Much more so than 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, the light half is technically waxing, but you still can't even see it until 3. So you can see it's very dark around 15, 14. 14 is really a lousy TITHI. It's got bad Karnas, bad TITHI. It's really extreme into the dark fortnight. So, you avoid that one. You never start a business or hold a marriage or something on that one if you want to have any, additional luck or blessing or good fortune besides your own hard work. Whereas you can see also the bright fortnight looks pretty great, but the fourth one and the beginning of the eighth one, it can be a little bit not so good. Because you have the overlay of a negative Karna with a negative TITHI. Is this making sense? Mridanga Madhu asks, the moon is just starting its waning cycle and will still appear almost full, and the day after the new moon it's waxing, but still very dark in the sky. Is this darker moon more auspicious because it is waxing? So that's what I was just talking about. Really, the first TITHI of the waxing month is still, people will mistake it for a full moon easily. Right? However, it's technically waning. But first, second TITHIs are good anyway. So there are different schools of thought. There's different schools of thought. There's not one unified opinion. Some people say that the moon is auspicious from 8 to 8. And other people say that the moon is auspicious from 1 to 15, waxing. I'm presenting it here on the screen as 1 to 15 just because of the chance of the visuals. The visuals look that way because I'm just showing the difference between the waxing half and the waning half. But personally, I feel that it makes more sense to do from 8 to 8. So I hope that answers your question. Mridanga? Did your question get answered? Why does it start in the second half of the TITHI? It starts in the second half of the first Karna is on the second half of the first TITHI because the first Karna is the premonition. Shakuni. The premonition comes before the creation. So Shakuni comes before Bhava. Other than that, why didn't they make the premonition come at the end of the 15th TITHI? I didn't make the system. I'm just reporting to you what the system is. It does make sense to me. It does make sense to me, however, that the premonition doesn't come until you see how the thing is growing. You can't get a premonition of something without at least some initial look at its trajectory. So they wait for the first Karna of the first TITHI to call it the Shakuni Karna. And then they get the first Karna. Jonathan Henkel has Naga Karna. So what would Jonathan Henkel want to do with Naga Karna? Honestly, the Karna is the primary important thing is how the nakshatra and works with the Karna, works with the TITHI. That's the primary thing of importance for determining whether or not a particular day is auspicious or not. So, for example, if you get an Ardra nakshatra on a Chidra TITHI, it can be very dark, but it working good in that sense, right? Working good. You have a very destructive person, but not in a negative way. A person who really can cut out all the BS and everything. But if you have a Pushya nakshatra and a Chidra Tithi, they kind of mess with each other. And nothing really, it just becomes a muddled day. Or if you have Pushya nakshatra and say the 13th Tithi or the 10th Tithi, then it's a very, very auspicious day. So that's a general idea, like just a general look at what I'm talking about. But the system, the Vedic system itself, has a definition of 27 combinations between the Tithi and the nakshatra. And those are really, really important. More so than just knowing your Karna. I don't even know my Karna. Wait, I could figure it out though, right? My Karna is second. Balavya. I believe, yes, it is the second. It's at the beginning of the second nakshatra, of the second Karna. Do you know how I could figure that out? So could be the way that you could figure out how can you figure it out? Okay, take your chart. Step one, take your horoscope. And it really doesn't matter if you do sidereal or tropical, because it's divorced from the zodiac. So just take your chart. Find the number that describes the position of the sun. And then find the number that describes the position of the moon. And then count the amount of degrees between the two. So, for example, if you have the sun, let's do this. Let's say the sun is in Leo at 10 degrees, and the moon is in Gemini. And for simplicity's sake, let's make it also 10 degrees. Okay? How would you figure out the Tithi? So you start at Leo 10 degrees, then Virgo 10 degrees. Just use your fingers to count how many arcs you've gone through. How many 30-degree arcs. So starting from Leo, you go through Virgo 10, Libra 10, Scorpio 10, Sagittarius 10, Capricorn 10, Aquarius 10, Pisces 10, Aries 10, 10 degrees Aries, 10 degrees Taurus, 10 degrees Geminis. So we go through 10 zodiac signs. So that means 300 degrees. 10 times 30. So in that chart, where the moon was at 10 degrees of Gemini and the sun was at 10 degrees of Leo, there's 300 degrees from the sun to the moon. Not from the moon to the sun. From the sun to the moon. Then you divide that by 12. You take 300 and you divide it by 12. You take a calculator if you're not good at division, like I'm not, right? So let's take 300 and divide it by 12. It's 25. So in the chart where the moon is at 10 degrees Gemini and the sun is at 10 degrees Leo, this is the 25th Tithi. But it only goes up to 15. So that means it's the 10th Tithi waning. 10 plus 15, 25. Then which Karna is it? Now, I could be wrong about this, so double check what I'm about to say. But the Karnas, what I'm not sure about is if the Karnas start at sunrise or if they start by degree. If they start at sunrise, then what you do is you just determine if you were born during the day or during the night. So this person who's born with the sun at 10 Leo and the moon at 10 Gemini is born in the 10th waning Tithi. If they're born in the day, it's the 6th Karna, which is what? I think that's wealthy. Let's make sure. 6th Karna. Yeah, wealthy. And then if they're born at night, then it's the 7th Karna, which is Vishti, servile. If it is not by sun, if the Karnas are not anchored to sunrise, then you just say 200. It's exactly 12, right? The moon is exactly 12. It's 300 degrees from the sun in that example. where the moon is at 10 degrees Gemini and the sun is at 10 degrees Leo. The moon is exactly 300 degrees, so it's exactly at the beginning of the 10th Karna. So it would be the 10th Tithi of waning, so it would be the 6th Karna. That's how you can figure out what the Karna and Tithis are in any given chart, in your chart, in anything. Any questions there? So that answers plenty of your questions. I hope Punarvasu moon works good with Shukla Dashami. Shukla Dashami should work good with just about anything. See how bright it is? Bardo's is 19th Tithi, so that's the 4th dark. This Bardo, you are so ready for your moksha. I have Purva Bhadrapad rising with Naga Karna. That would be good. I'm not really sure. I'm just presenting you the basics. Any other questions? Want me to walk you through one more calculation? So you can see let me get a chart on the screen. Uno momento. All right. We will pick Boy George. This is so lame. Anyway, okay, so Boy George. Sun is at 23 degrees of Gemini. Okay. Moon is at 3 degrees of Taurus. So how much space is between his sun and his moon? Sun is at 23 degrees Gemini, so it's 7 degrees from the beginning of not Taurus, Cancer. Of Cancer, and then 3 degrees to his moon at 3 degrees in Cancer. So 7 plus 3 is 10. So there's 10 degrees between Boy George's moon and sun. The moon has advanced 10 degrees past the sun. So then what Tithi is that? It's less than 12, isn't it? So it's the first Tithi. And it would be probably the first Karna of the first Tithi. Let's pick another person. How about... Well, this is also how you can know people like Krishna. So for Krishna, it's said that he's born on Ashtami. Krishnashtami, I think it is. So, for that reason, yeah, Krishnashtami. So, like, we have information recorded that his birth is on the Ashtami at the moonrise, and it's during the summer. So, from that little bit of information, you can reconstruct a lot of details. So, for example, we must know where the sun is now. If we know that his moon is rising in Rohini, and it's Ashtami, then the sun must be about 90 degrees from Rohini. So it's got to be in the Palguni. And that makes a lot of sense. And we know that his sun must be in the 4th house, etc. Another person... Russell Brand. Russell Brand's Sun's 13 Gemini. Okay, this is a good example of another dark moon. 13 Gemini Sun, 5 Aries Moon. And it doesn't matter if you're using sidereal coordinates, because you'll just subtract 23 or 24 from both. And it doesn't matter if you describe his position with nakshatras or whatever. You're just taking the angle between the sun and the moon. So 180 degrees from 13 Gemini is 13 Sagittarius. So 210 is 13 Capricorn. 240. And then this is just too confusing. 7 is the Sagittarius. 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 zodiac signs are completed if you count from Gemini. Yeah, 13. Okay, the sun is at 13 degrees of Gemini, so let's give it 17 degrees to get to the beginning of Cancer. So put 17, write it down somewhere and keep it on the side. Then Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. 9 times 30, 270. We had 17 written down on the side, right? 270 plus 17, 287. And then how far is it into Aries? 3 degrees. 287 plus 3, 290. So Russell Brand's moon is 290 degrees forward from his sun. It doesn't make sense, does it? Yeah, it does. Can that be right? Let's double check this. 17 plus 30, 60, 90, 30, 60, 90, 120, 150, 180, 210, 240, 270. Yep, we did it right. Oh, it's at 5 degrees of Aries, 275 plus 17 is 290 something. So then you just divide 290 by 12. He's in the 24th TITHI. Subtract 15. So it's the 9th TITHI. And by degree, it would definitely be the first Karna. And even by time, wow. I think it's by degree then. Because he's born before the sunrise on the 4th. Now, this is a further interesting thing. One more interesting thing here. If you do this the way I'm describing it to you, then you know the actual TITHI of his moon to his sun. But you do not know the TITHI of the day that he was born yet. And why is that? So, for example, this man was born at 12:05 a.m. So that's a long time after sunrise. So he's probably born on an 8th TITHI day. His moon had achieved the 9th TITHI by the time he was born. So there's different... which one should you interpret as his moon's TITHI? Or should you take them both and bring both into consideration, that he's born at a different TITHI than what the day started on? Maybe that in itself is significant. This is just new. This is a new field for us. It's a kind of an unexplored field. All right, any last questions? So Krishna's TITHI was 8. What Karna? I'm not sure. They don't say the Karna. But it could either be 2 or 3. There's no other option for the 8th TITHI in the waning side, right? So it could either be 2, which is Balav, or 3, which is Kaurav. U Ventura says, exalted Chatushpada are like to destroy sensuality. Exalted Chatushpada, yeah, maybe. This is a new field. I don't have much practice in using this information. So one would have to practice and hopefully find somebody who has experience, which may be very difficult to find. Have somebody with experience explain how they use it. Of course, now 10 people are going to step forward and say, yeah, I have experience. Hopefully to find a genuine teacher is very difficult. Vana says, please do 10 Libra, 26 Capricorn. Okay, Vana, so 10 Libra, Sun, is that 10 Libra? Then you count 20 degrees to get to the next sign, which is sign number 8, Scorpio, right? So write down 10 and put it on the side. And 8, 9, and then you'll cross 2 signs full to get to Capricorn. So 2 signs is 60 degrees. So you add your 10 to it now. You get 70 degrees, and then it's 26 Capricorn, so just add 26 to 70. And it's 96. So now you know your moon is 96 degrees from the sun. You can figure it out however you want. But whatever system you use, you'll figure it out that it's 96 degrees. Then you divide that by 12. It's around 8, isn't it? It's exactly 8. So it's Ashtami. I'm saying also for you, I don't know. I myself don't know about this. How these tithis pertain to the birth is an unexplored field. Have you seen them used in birth chart interpretations? No. Maybe they're just overlooked and not used, or maybe they're not meant to be used that way. One would have to find out. But what they are definitely used for is electionals, where you're going to decide, when should I get married? When would be the most auspicious time to open my business? When would be the most auspicious time to take this person to court, to file the lawsuit case? You would not want that on an auspicious day. You want that on an inauspicious day, because you want to destroy something. The opponent. Okay, I'll end it here. I hope you enjoyed it. So next week we will look at this technique for determining whether a point is auspicious or not based on its tithi and karana. So what he's going to say is to take your moon and multiply its position by 5 for the 5th house. Take your sun and multiply its position by 5, and then figure out the tithi between them. And is that tithi chidra or not? And is the karna auspicious or inauspicious? Is it vishti or is it these other ones? Those 4 in the end, they're called stula. They don't repeat. Is it vishti or stula? Then it's not a fertile person. If this multiple of 5 tithi is in an inauspicious configuration. And that's really interesting, because maybe you can do it for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and find out all sorts of things. Like maybe if you multiply the moon by 4 and the sun by 4, you can find your auspiciousness for real estate. Maybe by 3 you can find your auspiciousness for winning competitions. Maybe for 2 you can see your health. The 1 is the obvious one. Maybe if you multiply it by 6, you can see how well you deal with problems. But I think if you're doing by 3 and by 6, then you would want the reverse. You would want to see it go in chidras, vishtis, and stulas. So we'll talk about that more next week. Thank you, everyone.